What's up, everybody? Chris here from Big Sports News, back at it again with another video. Today I'm going to bring you guys a quick recap as to what happened during Day 3 of the Stage 4 Major, as well as what you can expect going into Championship Sunday, and of course being Day 4. Yesterday we had 5 matches, so I'm going to try to keep this pretty short and sweet so you guys don't get overwhelmed and this video doesn't go on for like 20 minutes like yesterday's video did. So looking at the stats just to kick things off, we of course had the New York Subliners going crazy. Decimate had a 1.2, Mac had a 1.13, Clay had a 1 even, and Hydra, of course, had a 0.79. So this is really the worst performance we've seen out of Hydra since he joined this team, but they got the win, so honestly, who cares? On the Florida Mutineers side, Skies had a 0.78, Neptune had a 1.26, Havoc had a 0.8, and Wake had a 1.07. So really, it was Neptune show on the side of the Mutineers. I mean, you saw at the end of the match, he was like pretty visibly upset. Basically, he was thinking, what more could I have done? I did everything that I could, but he just couldn't get the job done. Looking ahead to map 1, that of course being Checkmate Hardpoint, we had the Mutineers putting up a really valiant effort. Neptune had a 2.4 KD, and that's the reason why they won this map. He won 37-15. You guys can obviously see the stats on the screen. Dominant performance from the Mutineers, and that's why they closed the map out. Neptune was just all over the place, just having. So that was really, it was fun to watch. Of course, map 2, of course, Moscow S&D. Hydra had a 4.2 KD. He went 17-4. I mean, the guy had more kills than probably the Mutineers put together. No. It was 21, so only 4 up. Wow. Yeah, that's insane. He almost had more kills than the entire other team. He almost broke the kill record for S&D, which is currently 20, I think. Prim still holds that from Warhawk S&D. Maybe somebody equaled it. I don't think anyone's beaten it in 4s, though. So that's crazy performance from Hydra. Of course, Subliners took that map 6-3. Of course, the raid control, Subliners took this 3-1. Decimate had a great performance, as did Mac. 1.47 for Mac, 1.58 for Clay, and a 1.24 for Desi. And then on the Mutineer side, everybody went negative, so that's pretty clear cut. Of course, map 4, that being Moscow Hardpoint, Desi dropped a 1.14, Mac had a 1.24. And then on the Mutineer side, Awakening dropped a 1.44, and Skies dropped a 1.05. So honestly, the slaying power on the Mutineers was just a little bit better than that of the Subliners, and that's why they were able to topple them so easily. Also, Hydra going so negative was kind of the difference maker here. A lot of the plays that he made were kind of neutralized at a certain point in the map, and that's why it stretched on for so long. And Mutineers were ultimately able to close it out. Now, of course, in the game 5, Neptune, he went absolutely insane. 14-6, 2.33 KD. And then on the other side, Decimate dropped at 2.75 KD, going 11-4 to close things out for the Subliners. They won the Express S&D 6-4. And this was kind of an upset. You guys know I was expecting Mutineers to walk away with the series either 3-1 or 3-2 yesterday. But I expected them to get through just based on how strong they've looked in the stage. But regardless, that Subliners Core 3 was just too strong for them. Of course, in our next matchup, we had the Surge taking on Optic. You guys know I was expecting this one to go down to a game 4. I wasn't expecting it to go to 5. I said in my video I thought it would go to 5, but on the graphic I said 4. So that was kind of a miscommunication with my own brain, I guess. But looking at the stats, of course, everybody on Optic went positive apart from Scump. He had a 0.96, so he went a little bit negative. But Formal was frying. I mean, the guy had 19,000 damage throughout the series, 1.14. Envoy 1.03 and Dashia 1.2. So great performance from the Optic boys. On the Seattle side, the only one positive was Octane. He had a 1.05. So honestly, like I said in my video yesterday, I did think that Seattle hadn't faced any good competition that really challenged them, and that would kind of show in this series. And looking at the map 1, Scump was having endlessly all-you-can-eat breadsticks, if you will. 1.43 on the Checkmate Hardpoint. Formal had a 1.08, Dash had a 1.22. Everyone on Seattle went neg. Now in the game 2, Express S&D. Of course, we had Formal and Envoy popping off for the Optic Chicago side. 2.17 for Envoy. And then Formal, of course, at 1.29. Optic took map 2, went up 2-0 in the series. And Octane on the other side had a 2.33 KD. I was trying to do it all, but he just couldn't get it done. Unfortunately, he didn't have as much support as he needed. And Gunless went 2-10, so that was a real difference maker there. Of course, going into map 3, that being Checkmate Control, this is really interesting. Scump had a 0.73, even though Checkmate Control has really been a map and mode that he has done well on all year long. Formal had a 1.46. He was going crazy in that series. He was 35-24. Dash at a 1.25. And then Classic and Persini, the SMG duo, really popped off for Seattle, and that's who won the map. Of course, they both had 1.15s, and Octane and Gunless had a rough go of it, but they still won the map 3-2. So it was a great showing for Seattle in map 3. And then on map 4, APOC Hardpoint, as we would all expect, Optic lost this one. Seattle's a really strong APOC Hardpoint team, so it makes sense that their AR duo, Gunless and Octane, of course, went off with a 1.33 for Octane and a 1.56 for Gunless. Dashy's only one positive on the Optic Chicago side with another 1.25, 25 and 20 performance. How many 25 and 20 games did this guy have? The checkmate and the hardpoint, he had back-to-back 25 and 20 games. That's actually wild. Of course, in the game 5 S&D, Scump dropped to 1.17, Envoy dropped to 1.71. Oh, he took Octane's KD from the day before. That's interesting. And then Persini on the Seattle Surge side was the only one positive with 1.14. So Optic walked away with that pretty comfortably 6-3, and they looked great in that series. Everybody with the exception of Scump was, of course, positive. And you guys know I was expecting them to make the run yesterday, so this was step 1. And of course, in our first match of losers round 4, we had Dallas Empire taking on the New York Subliners. And honestly, this was a really, really close series. Hydra was the only player who had like a really strong KD. Of course, Vivid and Crim6 on the Dallas Empire side both went positive. But everybody on New York, with the exception of Hydra, who had a 1.3, went negative. Looking at map 1, that of course being Gary Hardpoint, New York just dominated in the slaying category, but they just couldn't pull it together. Dallas is a really, really strong objective team. Even when they're getting outslayed heavily, they still somehow find a way to win. As you guys can see here, they got outslayed by about 12 kills, and they still somehow found a way to win this map, which is pretty impressive. They won 250 to 211. Honestly, they were just getting time efficiently. They were breaking really well. They were rotating early, and their fundamentals were very, very sound. NYSL is usually a team with very solid fundamentals, especially in hardpoint. But honestly, with the core 3 being the only iteration of their roster that remained for this major, it was kind of expected that their fundamentals would be a little bit sloppy against top tier teams. Of course, in the Miami S&D, totally different story. Decimate dropped to 2.75, Hydra dropped to 1.5, and on the Empire side, Crim was the only player positive with a 1.4, as you guys can see on the screen. So Subliners took this one pretty convincingly with a 6-2 scoreline. And then in the control, Dallas got it back in blood, if you will. They were out for revenge. Vivid had a 1.57. Crim and Illy, of course, their AR duo, both had 1.2 for Illy and a 1.3 for Crim. And then everyone on the Subliner side went negative. So it was a 3-0 for them. Pretty hot 3-0 on the Gary control. And that was a pretty quick control, if I'm being honest with you. And then in the closeout map, of course, we had the Empire closing it out on Checkmate Hardpoint. Vivid dropped to 1.38. Shotzi dropped to 1.25. And everyone on the side of NYSL, with the exception of Hydra, was negative. Of course, Hydra had a 1.71. And honestly, he was frying, but the rest of the team just couldn't keep up with him, and they got stomped. It was 250 154. I had a feeling that Dallas would eliminate them on map 4, and I think that's what I picked in my initial prediction yesterday. But yeah, Dallas looked great in this series, and honestly, going up against Optic Chicago, both teams are so hot, I don't know what to expect. Of course, looking at our second matchup of losers round 4, that being Optic Chicago versus Minnesota Rocker, we can see that everyone on the Optic Chicago side, with the exception of Envoy, had a positive KD. Scump had a 1.14, Formal had a 1.23, Dash had a 1.31, and everyone on the Rocker side was negative. Major Maniac almost went positive. He had a 0.99, just one kill off going even, and Optic just looked really good in this series. Of course, in the Checkmate hardpoint, this being one of Optic's best hardpoints, they are now 10-1 on it. Sandy had a 1.05. He was the only player on the Rocker side to go positive. And then everyone on the Optic Chicago side, with the exception of Envoy, went positive. Scump had a 1.35, Form with a 1.41, Dash with a 1.33. Great performance for them across the board. They won at 250 to 180. Of course, in the Raid S&D, that being map 2, obviously, Minnesota Rocker won the 6-4. Sandy had a 1.14 and Priest had a 1.33. I feel like that duo, they just had so many kills that were contextually so important. Like Sandy's 3-piece at bottom apartment to steal, I believe it was round 9, taking them up 5-4. They just made a lot of big plays at the tail end of the game. Of course, on the Optic Chicago side, the only player positive was Dashy with a 1.5. Not too great of a showing from Optic on Raid S&D, map they've been pretty shaky on, but they put up a valiant effort, and Minnesota are a very strong Raid S&D team. So going 6-4 is pretty encouraging for them going into today. helping that their map pool is a little bit bigger. Of course, on the checkmate control, Optic took this one pretty convincingly, as we would expect them to. This has been one of their better controls all year long. Formal was having he to 1.84 and Dash A to 1.47. The SMG duo on the Chicago side didn't really look too great. Scump had a 0.83, Envoy had a 0.82. So it's pretty much the inverse of what happened with Surge in their matchup against Optic. Of course, SMG duo on Surge, they both put up 1.15s going up against Optic, I think on the same map, and that's what helped them to get the victory in a 3-2 fashion. So looking at the map for Gary, hard points closed it out. Major Maniac went crazy on the rocker side. He did 1.43. He was going insane. Sandy had 5,700 damage, and he had a 0.83 somehow. But on the Optic side, everybody did really, really well, with the exception of Formal. This was his one-off map in this series. Scump had a 1.33, Envoy had a 1.04, and Dash had a 1.13. So it was really the Scump show on this map. He closed it out himself. He said, "I'll do it myself," just like Thanos. So they looked really good on Gary. This is a map that they've struggled with a lot throughout the year. So them improving on Garrison is right on time. That's a map that Dallas really loves to play, and I expect to see that map in the series against Dallas. I do think Dallas will probably win it, but good showing for Optic. It definitely showed that they can play this map well, and they can win it, and they can play fundamentally sound. Of course, in our last match for the day, that being the Toronto Ultra versus Atlanta Faze series, you guys know I had this one as a 3-1 for Faze, and that's what came to fruition. So looking at the stats, of course, Abizi had a 0.92. Not the greatest performance from him. Obviously, a 0.92 for an entry SMG against Toronto Ultra is a great performance in context. I mean, that AR duo of course, Cammy and Insight, they just shred everything that comes into their line sights. So a 0.92 in context is pretty good for Abizi, but obviously, I think he's the best player in the world. So you expect him to put up better numbers, but not against a side like Toronto Ultra. So this is fair for him, I would say. RC's had a 0.98, but he just did everything he needed to in this series. Cell had a 1.06, and Simp had a 1.23, which is insane considering the competition he was going up against. On the Toronto Ultra side, you had Insight with a 1.07, Cammy with a 1.13, Vance with a 0.68, and Kleenex with a 0.95. So if this Ultra team wants to make the run and win this tournament, they're really going to have to step up on the SMG side. I mean, Kleenex had a pretty solid performance, but Vance with a 0.68, that's just an anomaly for him, in my opinion. I think he will get it back in their next matchup, and I'm not sure how that will go, but I think he'll rebound. Looking at the map one, this was the Simp show without a doubt. The guy dropped a 2.73, and Cell was the next closest person with a positive KD, of course, Arceus was the next closest person with a 1.55, followed by Cell with a 1.18. And everyone on the Ultra side went negative. Insight had a 0.57, Vance had a 0.5. I'm not going to go through all those stats, but everybody went negative on the Ultra side. But luckily for them, they rebounded map two. Everyone on Faze went super negative, with the exception of Simp, who went even 5 and 5. And of course, on the Ultra side, Cammy had a 5 KD going 10 and 2. So they just ran this map. Standoff looked really good for Ultra. They looked very comfortable on it. And Kleenex and Cammy, they look super comfortable. It fits their playstyle very well. And I think that's why they won the map. Now, the control was absolutely insane. So the round 4, I believe Toronto had full streaks on Insight and Cammy, I want to say, or Insight and Kleenex. And they used the streaks really poorly in the round 4 to close it out. They had, I believe, an 11-6 life count advantage. And Arceus was the last person on the point. He got a really clutch, I believe, 2-piece to close it out. And he was the last man standing with like 4 seconds to go. And it was like 11 versus 6 with like 20 seconds maybe. It just got really mixy. Arceus came out as the sole victor, and that's how they won map 3. It was absolutely insane. If I can find the highlight, I'll post it here for you guys. But looking at the stats, of course, Insight had a 1.35, Cammy had a 1.27, and Arceus on Faze was the only player positive with a 1.04. So it was just a really mixy map, as you guys can see, based on the stats. But of course, like I said, the AR duo on the Toronto Ultra side was just shredding. Now, looking at the game before Moscow Hardpoint, this was a great performance from Faze. Honestly, Ultra put up a very valiant effort. Insight at a 1.11, Cammy at a 1.04, excuse me, a 1.0 even, and Kleenex at a 1.04. Of course, on the Faze side, Salim really closed this map out for them. He had a 1.47, and he was the difference maker in this map. So Faze looked really great closing out. They closed out 250 to 220, and it was a great showing for them. I think this will probably be the finals rematch, unless Optic really catches fire If they beat Empire, I think they also beat Ultra, and I think they make it to the finals. And I'm praying that we finally get the Optic versus Faze match we've been waiting for all year. You guys know who I'm rocking with. If we see that matchup, I'm going to take Faze, and I'll call it a 5-2 if it comes to fruition. Now, looking at today's matches, our first matchup is a serious doozy. We have the Empire taking on Optic. Honestly, I think this is going to be a 3-1 for Optic. I'll call it now. I think the Optic has made the necessary improvements, and I think that in their first series, they didn't show signs of life against Empire. But also, the Empire kind of caught everybody with their pants down because no one was expecting Empire to look as good as they did. They really got back into form, and they were looking like the Empire that we saw at the beginning of the year around stage 1, where they placed second at the major, and they really fried everybody. So no one was really expecting Dallas to look as good as they did and to make as many improvements as they did as fast as they did. I think that's what happened to, of course, the Toronto Ultra, who got brought to a game 5 round 11, and then Optic, who got swept by Dallas. So as it stands, I think it'll be either a 3-1 or a 3-2 for Optic. I think they're finally comfortable in the LAN environment, and they also just got caught with their pants down. They weren't expecting Dallas to come out that hot, but the guys just came out really hot. So in our next matchup, I'm assuming it'll be Optic versus Toronto. And I think Optic, if they beat Dallas with the momentum that they have coming in from the Seattle Surge and Minnesota Rocker victories yesterday, I do think they topple the Ultra, and I'll call it a 3-2. So that leads us to the grand final, which I think Faze will take pretty comfortably. If they play Optic, I think it'll be a 5-2 for Faze. I think they win their third major of the year. I think they improved to, what would that make them? 30-4 on the year in series count, which is absolutely bonkers. Like, wow, how does that even happen? But yeah, I think Faze wins this major. I think that no matter who makes it through the grand finals, I think Faze walks away with a 5-2 or 5-3 victory. I think it's pretty comfortable for them. And I hope you guys have a great morning, noon, or night, wherever you may be on this beautiful planet. I hope you enjoy all the COD action. And I hope you get to see whoever hoists the trophy on the main stage. We have great action lined up today. We have our top 4 teams: Dallas, Toronto, Optic, and Faze. I don't know if I said that was what I thought was going to be the top 4, but pretty much from Thursday, I thought that Dallas would make it in the top 4, and I thought Optic would rebound and get back to the top 4. Now, obviously, Ultra and Faze were a foregone conclusion from day one. Pretty much the start of stage 4, we knew that they were going to be top 2, especially with the benching of ASIM, with the visa issues that he had. So this is a pretty unsurprising top 4 given how the major's gone. And I'm really excited about these matches. So I hope you guys enjoy them all. And if you haven't seen the call out, of course, my series with the chat on their YouTube and Twitter page, be sure to go check that out. I give you guys a super, super, super quick preview of what to expect going into that day's matches. So if you can't catch these videos, be sure to always go check that out. And don't forget to like and, of course, comment on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Once again, this is Chris from Esports, and I'm signing out. Peace.